The punishment. The great hall of the Vinth Empire was silent. Thousands of alien nobles sat under floating lights, their golden eyes fixed on one figure, Princess Aelara Vinth, kneeling before the Empress. Her silver armor was cracked. Her pride was not. The Empress's voice echoed through the chamber. Princess Aelara, you betrayed your own kind. You spared the humans during the siege of Earth. Aelara lifted her head slowly. They were already dying. Killing them served no purpose, the crowd hissed. Humans were nothing in the Vinth dominion, weak, soft, and ruled by fear. Showing them mercy was shameful. The Empress stood, her robes glowing like molten metal. For your disobedience you will be punished. You will marry one of them, a human. Aelara's heart stopped. The nobles laughed. Some whispered, "Let her see what filth feels like." She tried to protest. "Mother, please, silence!" the Empress roared. "You will learn what it means to bow to the lesser." Two guards dragged a man forward. He was tall, human, dressed in a black uniform torn from battle. Shackles bound his hands, but his eyes, gray and calm, met hers without fear. That moment the hall grew cold. He did not kneel. He did not speak. He only looked at her as if he already knew her soul. "Name?" the Empress demanded. The man's voice was quiet but steady. "Commander Rain Mercer, Earth Defense Force." The Empress smiled cruelly. "You are now husband to Aelara of Vinth." The hall burst into mocking cheers. But Rain's expression did not change. Aelara glared at him. "Do you understand what this means, human?" He looked at her for a long moment, then said, "Yes, it means they're afraid of something." Aelara frowned. "Afraid of you?" He tilted his head. "No, afraid of why I'm still alive." For the first time she felt her breath catch. Something about his presence, though calm, heavy, and human, felt wrong or maybe too right. As guards dragged him away, she whispered to herself, "He's supposed to fear me. So why do I feel fear instead?" And far above the hall, unseen by all, the stars pulsed once, and as if watching, the wedding. The palace of Vinth turned into a stage. Floating banners moved like living fire. Music with sharp metal notes filled the air. Nobles in bright armor smiled with beautiful cruelty. They came to watch a human kneel. Princess Aelara walked down the crystal path. Her face was calm. Her hands were cold. She told herself this was only politics, only punishment, nothing more. Commander Rain Mercer stood at the altar without chains. The guards had removed them as a gift. He did not run. He did not bow. He simply waited, eyes steady, as if the whole palace was a map he had already learned. The priest of the core lifted a glowing shard. It pulsed like a small star. "Bonding mark," he said. "Touch and the oath is complete." Aelara refused to extend her wrist. She stared at Rain instead. "You are not my equal," he answered without heat. "I don't want your throne." "Then what do you want?" she asked. "To see who is lying," he said. The priest sighed. "Enough." He caught Rain's wrist and pressed the shard to his skin. The crystal screamed. Light burst across the hall. White, then blue, then a color no eye had a name for. Air shook. Banners tore. Nobles fell back, hissing. The shard should have burned red for a slave bond. Instead it turned pure white and then clear like a window into deep space. The palace engines stuttered. For one heartbeat, every machine in the city went silent. Doors unlocked. Shields blinked. Drones fell to the floor like dead insects. Rain did not move. The light crawled from his wrist to his palm, then leaped, clean, bright, into Aelara's skin even though she had not touched him. The mark appeared on her wrist anyway. A slow ring like frost forming on glass. Gasps. Panic. Ancient words in the crowd. Impossible. Forbidden. Human core link? No! Aelara felt heat, then cold, then a strange calm, as if a giant hand had placed her somewhere safe. Rain's voice reached her through the noise. "Princess," he said softly, "don't be afraid of the light. Be afraid of what it exposes." Guards rushed in. The Empress rose, her face carved from stone. "Seize him." Rain glanced at the ceiling as if listening to a distant drum. "It hurt us," he whispered. "The core, it is waking." The priest tried to pull the shard free. It would not move. It had fused into a long, thin line, pointing from Rain's wrist to Aelara's like a bright thread between two stars. The floor trembled. Somewhere deep below, reactors coughed. A low hum spread through the palace and into the bones of every living thing. Aelara finally spoke, voice tight. "What are you?" Rain looked at her, not proud, not broken, only certain. "Not a weapon," he said. "A key!" The hum rose to a roar. Windows shattered outward. Every light in the city went black. Then one heartbeat of absolute darkness. When the lights returned, 12 royal guards lay on the ground without wounds, eyes open, breathing fast. But their weapons had melted into silver puddles around their hands. Rain lifted his marked wrist. The bright thread between them pulsed once. "Stand back," he told Aelara. From the throne, the Empress smiled like a blade. "No," she said. "Stand closer." Hidden doors opened. A cage of void metal rose around the altar, closing like a trap. Cliffhanger. The cage slammed shut and the white thread flared, and something inside the palace answered with a voice that was not human, not Vinth, and very, very old. The awakening. The void metal cage locked around them with a hungry sound. Black bars drank the light. Energy fields hissed like cold snakes. Nobles leaned forward, eyes bright with fear and delight. Princess Aelara stood very still. The white thread between her wrist and Rain's wrist shone through the dark like a narrow path across night. It pulsed once, twice, in time with her heartbeat. From deep under the palace came the voice again, soft, layered, older than memory. "Carrier located." Seed resonance confirmed. The words were not spoken. They were placed inside every mind, like a silver coin dropped into water. Nobles clutched their heads. The priest fell to his knees, mumbling old prayers. The Empress did not move. "So the myth was true," she said. "Humans once touched the core, then we cut your hands off." Rain studied the bars. "Calm as a surgeon." "You didn't cut enough." He stepped toward the cage. The bars should have burned his skin. Instead, they steamed as if winter breath met hot iron. The bright thread snapped tight between him and Aelara. She felt it tug in her bones. Aelara whispered, "But what is the seed?" Rain did not look at her. "Memory, code, will." A pause. "And a price." The Empress raised her arm. Hidden machines woke. The cage thickened with layered fields. Colors bent. Sound slowed. Aelara's hair lifted as if gravity forgot her. "Break him," the Empress ordered. The fields pressed in. Rain's breath shortened. He closed his eyes. The mark on his wrist flashed, and the palace changed. Doors unlocked in silence. Old walls remembered being young. In the throne hall ceiling, a star map long erased bled back into view. 12 human constellations, names written in a language Vinth scholars had buried. The nobles looked up and saw for the first time Earth in the map's heart. The priest screamed, "Blasphemy!" Rain opened his eyes. "No," he said, voice low. "History." The voice below grew louder, folding tone over tone like a choir made of engines. "Key accepted. Bond incomplete. Stabilizer required." Aelara felt the meaning more than the words. Stabilizer. Her hand shook. She understood with a clarity that felt like danger. The thread was not decoration. It was function. She was part of it. "Princess," Rain said, breathing hard, "do not touch the bars." "Touch me." Every noble hissed. The Empress laughed. "She will never." Aelara moved fast. Before her courage turned to dust, she reached through the heavy air and pressed her palm to Rain's marked wrist. The world narrowed to light. Metal sang. The cage changed pitch. The field stopped crushing and began to listen. The white thread widened, hair thin to finger thick, becoming a river of brightness flowing between them. Aelara felt cold pass from him into her, then heat, then something that was not temperature at all. A long, deep loneliness unlocking and letting go. Rain exhaled. The pain left his face. For a heartbeat, they were one circuit, one pulse. The palace reacted. Windows imploded inward like black flowers. Statues cracked. The throne steps split from end to end. Guards lifted their rifles, and the rifles wilted into soft metal vines that dropped from their hands. The Empress finally flinched. "Cut the bond," she shouted. 10 pylons rose from the floor, points aimed at the pair. A second cage began to grow, spikes of void metal forming like teeth. The voice below spoke a final time, louder than thunder, gentle as rain. "Carrier alive. Stabilizer chosen. Extraction route opening." The floor under Rain and Aelara turned to glass and then to sky. Gravity vanished. They fell, not down but through, like coins dropping into a well of stars. Aelara's last sight of the throne hall was her mother's face, no longer stone but startled. almost human. Then the world flipped. They were gone. And in the black cage they had left behind, something invisible moved, breathed once, and woke. You said, "The escape." They fell like stars through a hidden throat of light. Then impact. Aelara and Rain hit a floor of black glass that rippled and became stone. Air smelled of old dust and metal rain. Above them, far away, the palace thunder faded like a storm moving on. Blue symbols glowed under their boots, human script, ancient and clean. Rain stood first. He winced, but his eyes were sharp. The white thread between their wrists had thinned again, a quiet line of light. "Transit spine," he said. "Old human service routes, buried under every core city." Aelara stared at the walls. They were smooth, curved, and alive with soft lights waking after a long sleep. "My people never found this," she whispered. "You found it," he said. "You just buried it." The tunnel listened to their voices. Panels unfolded, breathing cold air. In the distance, something heavy dragged metal across metal. The sound was slow, patient. Aelara reached for her blade, remembered it had melted, and raised her empty hands instead. "Is it a machine?" "Not one of ours," Rain said. "Move." They ran. Lights flowed ahead of them, guiding like a river. The thing behind them did not hurry. It didn't need to. It knew every path. "Why is it hunting us?" Aelara asked, breath tight. "Because the Empress turned on deep protocols," Rain answered. "And because you touched me." He glanced at their wrists. "Now we are a signal." They reached a door without seams. Rain pressed his marked wrist to the panel. The voice below returned, soft, focused. Key recognized. Stabilizer verified. The door opened like an eye. Beyond lay a hangar, shaped like a crescent moon. In the center rested a small ship, bone-white, dust-kissed, waiting like a quiet animal. Aelara slowed. "It is human," she said, surprised by the instant certainty. She felt it the way she felt the mark inside the blood. Rain nodded. "Skiff class." Bold but honest, he stepped up the ramp. Systems woke in layers, greeting the air. "Can you fly?" Aelara smiled without humor. "I was trained in war." They strapped in. The dashboard spoke in Earth words Aelara did not know, but she knew their rhythm. The thread pulsed and the ship accepted her touch as if it had always known her. Behind them, the tunnel door shuddered. The slow thing finally arrived. It crawled into view, no clear shape, just a mass of black plates and red eyes that opened and closed like gills. It tasted the air with cables. It tasted them. The skiff trembled. "Now," Rain said. Aelara lifted. The skiff slid like ice over glass, then leaped. The hangar roof peeled back in petals. Cold void welcomed them with a hard, perfect silence. The city spread below like a crown of knives. Alarm lights bled from tower to tower. Vinth interceptors rose, wings bright and sharp. "Vector east," Rain said. Low and dirty. Aelara dove into the shadow of a broken spire. Enemy radar licked their hull and missed. She felt the ship answer her small moves, the way a blade answers a good hand. She felt alive. Rain worked the console, calm and fast. "I'm pinging old channels, looking for a ghost lane." "Ghost lane?" she asked. "Human smuggler path, hidden in civilian traffic, if it still exists." The interceptors closed, two ahead, two behind, one above. Aelara weaved between energy towers, skimming fields and waking sirens. The thread burned warm against her wrist. "Rain," she said, "I need a door." "Found one," he said. He tapped a command only the skiff could hear. Space in front of them twisted, nothing visible, only a feeling like a held breath. "Go," he whispered. She punched through. For one heartbeat, the skiff flew inside a corridor of not space. Stars stretched into wires. Sound became cotton. The interceptors overshot, confused, then corrected and followed. "Clever," Aelara said, a thin smile on her lips. "But not enough." "Then be more," Rain said. She was. The skiff dropped from the ghost lane into the shadow of a debris field. Old war bones, broken stations, cut ships, frozen gardens. A grave that sang in radio whispers. The interceptors fanned out, hunting. Aelara cut power. The skiff drifted among dead metal like one more corpse. Rain's hand hovered over a switch. He did not press it. He trusted her hands. Heartbeat. Silence. Hunt. Aelara watched the pattern of the enemy lights. She timed their sweep. On the third pass, she bled one burst of thrust, slipped under a torn solar wing, turned the ship sideways and slid into the spine of a dead cruiser. The interceptors missed, for now. Rain exhaled almost a laugh. Princess, remind me not to play cards with you. Remind me not to marry you again, she said, but her voice was warm. The warmth died. From the far side of the debris field, a shadow moved, large, deliberate. A hull like night edged in blue fire. Not Vinth, not any empire Aelara knew. Rain went very still. That is not possible. What is it? He swallowed. A human ship. Pre-fall. Dread class. The shadow turned and eyes lit across its side. Old sensors waking to a new bond. Their bond. Lock indicators bloomed red on the skiff's glass. Targeted. Held. Across the void, the dead human dreadnought opened its mouth and armed. The hunt. The dead human dreadnought turned like a sleeping whale that remembered teeth. Ports opened. Old guns woke. Target locks painted the skiff in cold red. Aelara kept her hand steady. If it is human, she said, will it help you? Rain watched the lights march across their glass. It will help the seed, he said. Not me. The dreadnought spoke without sound. Carrier detected. Bond partial. Retrieve. A spear of light reached from the dreadnought to the skiff. Not a weapon, a leash. The hull sang. Panels buckled. Cut free, Aelara said. We can't, Rain answered. It thinks we are cargo. Outside the graveyard, Vinth interceptors reformed. New signatures jumped in. Rivals, pirates, scavengers. Predators smelled blood. Channels bloomed with orders and bounties. The hunt had begun. Aelara bled the last of their hidden thrust and slid along the dead cruiser's spine. The leash bent, seeking. Rain fed the skiff lies. Fake heat, ghost echoes, old transponders. For a heartbeat, the leash blinked to a shattered shuttle. The dreadnought crushed it like paper. Again, Aelara said. They timed the scan. Dove. Spun. The leash scraped their tail but lost bone. The skiff tore free with a sound like broken ice. The dreadnought changed its mind. Hatches opened. Hunter drones spilled out, small, fast, sharp. They moved like thought. Pick a world, Aelara said. Anywhere. Rain's eyes flicked across the star map he had built in his head since childhood. There, he said. Kepri 9, ruined moon. No law, too much glass. Sensors lie there. Aelara punched the ghost lane. Space folded. Drones followed, tasting their wake like sharks. They fell out of the lane over a cracked pearl. Kepri 9's surface shone with heat scars and frozen rivers of glass. Broken towers jutted like bones from a burn. Aelara dropped the skiff low. Dust, shadow, silence. She killed the engines and let the wind take them. They slid into a canyon of black mirrors. The drones fanned above, whispering. Vinth ships arrived minutes later, lazy and cruel, certain of prey. They did not even argue. The moon would eat the bodies. The bounty would be paid. Aelara guided the skiff into a cave mouth. The hull kissed stone. Darkness took them. They sat without words, breathing in sync. The white thread on their wrists glowed like a small fire in night. Rain unsealed a medkit. His hands shook only after the work began. He cleaned Aelara's cuts. The alcohol bit. She did not pull away. You saved me, she said. You flew, he answered. I hid. He gave her water. It tasted of metal and old plastic. She drank it like it was royal wine. Outside, the drones searched with soft hunger. They sent fingers of light through the canyons. The light slid over the cave mouth and moved on. For now, Aelara looked at Rain's scars. Long lines, old burns, small circles where needles had been. What did they do to you? She asked. Rain was quiet. They tried to open the seed without the key. He tapped his chest. They forgot the cost. What cost? He did not answer. He looked at her wrist instead. Does it hurt? She considered. It feels like standing on a cliff. The wind is strong. If I lean forward, I will fly or fall. He smiled, tired. That's human. Silence. Warm. Strange. He taught her a human trick. Slow breath in 4 counts. Hold for 4. Out for 4. It calms the body, he said. It fools fear. She tried it. The cave got bigger. Above them, a drone paused. It tasted the air again. The thread pulsed once, and the drone turned its head as if listening to a distant drum. Rain whispered, "Don't move." The drone drifted on. Hours melted. They took turns sleeping. When Aelara slept, the cave became a sea. A voice walked across it barefoot. Stabilizer chosen. Protect the carrier or the galaxy dies. She woke with tears on her face and no reason. Rain stared at the cave mouth. He had not slept. It spoke to you, he said. Not a question. It begged, she answered. Her voice was thin. He nodded once. Then we move at dusk. They'll switch patrol patterns. They crawled deeper into the moon, through glass ribs, through rooms that had been gardens turned to knives. They found an old mining tram. Rain touched the console. It shivered and gave them a map like a torn web. Here, he said. Old vent shafts. They lead to the cold side. If we reach the far ridge, we can climb the radio shadow and slip out. They moved. Above, a Vinth officer grew bored and ordered a sweep with fire. Thin lines of heat licked the canyons. Glass sang. Drones dove excited. In the vents, metal popped with expanding air. The cave whispered warnings. Dust fell like gray rain. Aelara grabbed Rain's hand to steady him over a broken rail. The thread surged warm and sweet. The tram lights flickered on by themselves, as if the moon recognized the bond and wanted to help. Down, Rain hissed, pulling her flat. Footsteps, not drones, not Vinth. A shadow filled the tunnel, tall, wrapped in radiation cloth, face hidden. It raised a lantern made from a reactor shard. Light washed over them. The figure tilted its head, calm, curious. Then it spoke in a voice rough with lonely years. Carrier. Stabilizer. You're late? Cliffhanger. The truth, the figure lowered the lantern. A cracked visor showed 2 gray eyes and a tired smile. I am Archivist 7, he said, last keeper of this moon. I waited for you. Aelara stood between Rain and the stranger. You know him? I know the seed, Archivist 7 replied. He tapped his chest. Metal rang. I was made to guard it. To guard him. He led them into a chamber carved from black glass. The walls held old screens, sleeping for centuries. One by one, as the white thread pulsed between their wrists, the screens woke. Images appeared. Not art. Memory. Humans building the core lattice around a young star. Humans speaking with empires as equals. Humans laughing with strange friends. Then fear spreading like ink. Treaties cut. Statues scraped. Libraries burned. Long ago, the archivist said softly, humans were not slaves or myths. We were engineers of light. We built the core. It fed ships, cities, and peace. Aelara watched a council hall dissolve under Vinth soldiers. Her stomach turned. My people. Erase this? Not only yours, the archivist said. Many hands. One lie. On another screen, doctors leaned over a child, Rain, sleeping under pale lights. Tiny needles drank his blood. Symbols crawled across his skin. Star maps, equations, the shape of an engine made of song. They found a way to hide the master key in living code, the archivist said. They put it in the blood, in him. The seed can restart the core, or end it. Rain touched the glass. His voice was low. How do I remove it? You don't, the archivist answered. You balance it. The key is only half. It needs a stabilizer, a mind strong enough to take its heat, a heart brave enough to hold its weight. He looked at Aelara. The bond chose you, Aelara's mouth was dry. Why me? Because you did what the empires forgot, the archivist said. You spared the weak. Mercy is not softness. It is structure. Alarms rippled through the chamber. The screens turned red. A map bloomed. 9 signatures dropping from warp. Large, precise, hungry. The archivist straightened. The Empress is here. The cavern shook. Dust fell in veils. Outside, the sky turned the color of cut steel. Rain gripped the console. We run. No, the archivist said. He pointed to a door sealed with human script. You finished the bond. The door opened on a small round room. In the center stood a column of pale light. It hummed, patient as a heartbeat. The coupler, the archivist said. Stand there. Both of you. Hold the bond with clean minds, no lies. No fear, cannons thundered. Rock split. Far above, a royal voice rolled down the tunnels like fire. Aelara, the Empress called, clear and cold. Give me the human, come home. This ends today. Aelara's jaw tightened. She stepped into the coupler. Rain stepped with her. The white thread widened, bright and hot, wrapping their wrists like wedding bands forged from starlight. Last warning, the Empress said. Closer now. Choose your blood. Aelara closed her eyes. She saw the tribunal. The laughter. The dead guards with no wounds. The drones hunting like ghosts. Rain scars. The way the ship trusted her hands. The way the seed's voice begged in her dream. She opened her eyes. I choose truth. The coupler ignited. Light climbed their arms. Heat filled their bones. Memories not theirs rattled the room. Earth rain on broken streets. A small boy staring at stars through a cracked dome. A princess kneeling and refusing to hate. The chamber screamed. The floor split. The archivist fell to one knee and began to sing, a low human code song that told old machines to be brave. Outside, the first royal breachers cut through the rock. The Empress stepped into the hall beyond the chamber, silver armor, crown like a knife. She lifted her blade. The coupler's light struck Rain and Aelara like a tide. Their voices braided into one, key accepted. Stabilizer aligned. The mountain roared, cliffhanger. A shockwave of white fire raced outward. The Empress raised her blade to strike, and the core far below the planet opened its eye. The last touch, the mountain split like a chest opening to breathe. White fire rolled through stone corridors, but it did not burn flesh. It burned lies. Princess Aelara stood inside the coupler with Rain. The white thread between their wrists had become a band of light, bright as a small sun. The seed sang in Rain's blood. The core below answered, old and waking. The Empress strode into the chamber, cloak snapping, blade raised. Her voice was iron. Step away, Aelara. Give me the human. Or I cut the thread. I cut you. Aelara's voice was steady. Mother, the core is opening. If we break the bond now, the lattice will fail. The city will fall. Then let it fall, the Empress hissed. Better ash than truth. Archivist 7 rose, bruised and unafraid. He held up both hands. Highness, listen. The seed needs balance. Kill either of them and the chain reaction will... The Empress moved like lightning. Her blade flashed. Archivist 7 staggered back, a crack spreading across his chest plate like a spiderweb. Aelara flinched, then set her jaw. Enough, Rain's eyes found hers, calm, human. You ready? Yes, she said. Together. They reached, palm to palm, the coupler roared. The chamber turned to sky. Symbols rose from the floor and spun around them like bright fish. The core's voice filled every stone, gentle and huge. Key stabilized. Authority transfer pending. Confirm consent, Rain swallowed once. I consent, Aelara's throat tightened. I consent, the Empress screamed and lunged. Aelara lifted her free hand. Not a shield, not a weapon, only a no made of will. The blade met it and stopped as if time forgot to move. Cracks ran down the sword. The Empress stared at her daughter as if seeing a stranger. What are you? Aelara's eyes were wet but clear. Not your tool. The chamber shook. Far above, the palace engines failed again. Far below, something old turned like a slow starfish of light. Across the system, warships felt their guns become quiet. The dreadnought in orbit woke fully. It did not aim to kill. It aimed to listen. Ancient human codes rolled like warm rain across hard metal. The dead ship remembered orders. Protect the carrier. Protect the stabilizer. Protect the choice. In the coupler, pain found Rain. It was the old pain. Needles, cold rooms, 2 bright lamps. But now it had a hand to hold. Aelara took it, fingers tight. She let the heat move through her bones. She did not break. Take more, she whispered. I can carry it. He smiled, a flash of crooked boy under the soldier. Don't be a hero. I'm Vinth, she said. I'm human today. The Empress tried again to strike, and again the blade refused her. She dropped the weapon and reached for a hidden trigger in her crown. A fail-safe born of fear. The crown blinked red. Archivist 7, bleeding light, threw himself forward. He grabbed the Empress and locked his arms like steel around her. I was made to guard, he said, voice soft with pride. I choose whom. Release me, machine, she spat. Not today, he answered, and held. The core's voice deepened until bones hummed. Final query. Restore lattice to original human patterning or terminate core civilization grid. Rain's breath hitched. If we terminate, the wars stop. But everyone dies. Aelara shook her head. No more death by pride. Rain closed his eyes. He thought of Earth rain on tin roofs, of a child counting the seconds between lightning and thunder, of a princess who spared the weak and called it structure. He opened his eyes. Restore, he said. But bind it to consent. No empire controls the core again, Aelara lifted her chin. Let every world keep its own light. Shared power, not stolen. The white thread flared. then burst into a ring that circled both their wrists. The ring split into 1,000 small threads, racing out through rock, through air, through space, stitching ship to ship, city to city, heart to heart. Across the fleet, weapons went quiet by agreement. Engines throttled down without force. Shields rekeyed to local vows. Pirates cursed, then blinked at their own faces in dead gunmetal and felt something strange. Relief. In the throne hall miles above, nobles stared as banners fell still. The palace AI reset. A wall opened, showing the hidden star map the Vinth had carved out long ago. At its center, not a planet, not a throne, only a small symbol for a hand. The Empress felt power slip from her like sand. She went very still. Her eyes, always so sharp, flicked to her daughter. For a heartbeat, the fear was not for herself. It was ancient, lonely fear of being wrong. "Daughter," she said, voice more human than Aelara had ever heard. "If you do this, there is no crown." Aelara looked at Rain. The bond was heavy, but it no longer hurt. "Then let there be no crown." The core answered. Authority accepted. Lattice restored. Consent protocol embedded. Light rose like a new dawn from tunnels, from seas, from the black holes of old engines. The Vinth city did not fall. It changed. Streets opened where walls had been. Locked doors sighed and learned to ask. Machines that had only obeyed began to listen. The coupler dimmed. The ring on their wrists cooled. Now a dull silver like moon metal, Archivist 7 released the Empress and sagged to one knee. Cracks webbed his chest. Light leaked like water. He looked up at Aelara and Rain and smiled with old pride. "Record complete," he whispered. "Humanity. Remembered." Aelara knelt and touched his brow. "Thank you." Rain touched the fractured plate. "Sleep, friend." The Empress stood, breathing hard, empty hands shaking. "You have undone me," she said. Aelara stepped forward, not cruel. "We have undone the lie, Mother. Come with us. Learn." The Empress's mouth trembled. She looked at the silver ring on Aelara's wrist, then at her own bare hands. She did not bow, but she sat on the broken step where a throne had been and put her face in her palms. No one had ever seen her small. Silence spread wide and clean. Far above, the dead human dreadnought turned its guns away from everything and faced the stars like a watchman at peace. Rain leaned on the rail, tired down to the bones. "So," he said, voice rough but warm, "married by punishment?" Aelara's laugh was a soft, broken thing, then a real one. "Married by choice," she said, and laced her fingers with his. The ring on their wrists glowed once like a heartbeat that had learned a gentler rhythm. They walked out of the coupler together. The tunnel air smelled new. The map on the wall shifted, showing paths not of conquest but of visits, trade lanes, schools, pilgrim routes, places where stories could travel safer than armies. On the ridge outside, wind moved over glass that was no longer knives. It was sand now. It would be soil. A broadcast went out from the core to every world that could hear. Not orders, not threats, only a choice and a guide for keeping power honest. Archivist 7 watched them go, light dimming in his chest. He sat with his back to the coupler door like an old soldier at the end of watch. He smiled at a memory of Rain. "Tell them," he murmured to empty air, "that the human's curse was never rage. It was memory and mercy." In the distance, a child on a mining colony looked up as lights flickered back on. In a pirate bay, a woman put down her gun and counted her breaths. In a palace, a noble opened a locked room and found a library waiting. The stars did not change. They only remembered. Final line. They once called it punishment. The galaxies would remember it as the day two hands touched, and the night learned how to be morning.